Fantastic. What's your favorite football team? Let them know what you love about football.
My favorite football team is most likely the San Francisco 49ers.
Okay.
What's yours?
Well, my favorite one is the Hampton Crabbers, but if you come down to the NFL, you and I are going to be on opposite poles during this broadcast because I'm a Andy Reid man. I guess it's because of our mustache, so similar, but we're coming to you on the last snap here with Mike and Xander. I've been in this business for, I can't even count the number of years, but I was the head coach at Hampton High School for 51 years and assistant for 6, so I guess I put in 57 years there.
All right. Quiet on the set. 3, 2, 1. Action.
All right, my name is Mike Smith. I'm here with the last snap today with my grandson Xander. His last name is Sigfusson, but he's quite a guy. He's into all the sports. And the thing about him is he's very knowledgeable of all the sports. And I'm kind of hesitant here today because I wouldn't want to show an old grandpa up too much. But you are here with the last snap with Mike and Xander, and we're going to talk some football. And the only thing I think that we're going to have a difference in today is whose team is going to win this. And we're on opposite sides because I'm an Andy Reid guy and a Patrick Mahomes.
I'm a Brock Purdy guy and a Kyle Shanahan guy.
Well, you're going to get caught between the rock and the hard place. I'm scared. Because, you know, it's hard to beat the X factor. And I think Andy Reid's going to be the X factor in this. He's been in it a lot of times. He's won it a couple of times. But he's had success everywhere he's been.
So my name is Xander, and I am interested in football because of this man right here.
Well, I certainly appreciate that. We've seen some games together, and it's just the first time we've been on the opposite sides. But it's going to work out. This is going to be I think this has could be a great game. Depends on, I guess, the major things in these games a lot of times come down to officiating. And I can no longer be penalized for talking about officials, so I may get off onto them today. I've seen some horrible calls this year in the NFL as well as the collegiate games and the high school games. In fact, Xander, if I get off on that, you change me. But tell me why you choose San Francisco.
I choose San Francisco, well, also because I love, like, it's my hometown team, so I love them. But I think part of it is maybe that I think maybe they have a better defense. Could be with Nick Bosa, Fred Warner, Jay Greenlaw. I mean, depends on what you think about the Kansas City defense.
Well, I agree that Nick Bosa is really good. The rest of the defense for the 49ers is up front. Now, I think the secondary is good, but the linebackers are
quite it.
But with Bosa, he's really good. But the jury is out, and a lot of their defense is going to depend on what the other defenses in can do. And I don't know how he's going to do. Chase Young, he's struggling right now. The thing that's bothered me so much about watching the NFL is that guys give up, they make poor tackling, they're grabbing instead of running through the tackle, and then they'll just waddle down the field. I started to use a word I shouldn't use on this, but I would get upset with them. I noticed the last time I saw Andy Reid, he had icicles in his mustache. I don't think I'd ever get those if I had guys doing some of those things.
So speaking of what you just been saying, funny question. How do you get your news and stats? I wonder.
I'm sorry?
How do you get your news and stats?
Well, I watch the games, but the stats that I got, and I do know that your quarterback Brock had the highest rating of any NFL quarterback, and this wasn't a good year for my man Mahomes. But you got to understand that his receivers dropped 44 passes on him, so that's where stats can be different. I think I heard many years ago, at one time the winner of the ball game got the game ball. At the end of the game, even in high school, whichever team won, they got the ball after the game. So the only stat I was ever concerned about, who got the ball after the game. The rest of the stats don't mean much.
He asked you where you got your stats.
Where did you get them? Maybe the newspaper?
Oh,
Sports section?
that's where I got
101?
You must have been talking to Nana. I got them out of the newspaper.
Of course you did. Not surprising.
I'm not much on computers.
So I have a couple more questions. I would like to start with favorite players in the NFL this year.
Well, I would think that one of my favorite ones when he was playing was Mahomes. I really liked him. I have respected him as a player. And Kelsey.
Tell me about him.
Probably the one that stood out most to me was one that I coached, was a former quarterback for the Crabbers, was Tyrod Taylor. When he stepped in and started playing toward the end of the year, and I thought he had us very successful. Played really great.
Totally agree with that one.
How about you? Who's your favorite?
There's one QB that stood out to me that extremely well, and that QB was C.J. Stroud. He has had an amazing year, setting, maybe some records, especially for the Texans after a couple postseason appearances that did not go well in the last few years. But yeah, I think that guy stood out a lot this year for a rookie out of Ohio State.
I agree with you full-heartedly.
Yeah.
Although I think wasn't he from Ohio State by the Georgia Bulldogs? Didn't he go up from Georgia? He's originally at Georgia and ended up at Ohio State, but he had a great year with the Texans this year. I thought he did an outstanding job. I think he surprised a lot of people. But I was glad to see him accomplish what he did. And I thought against the Ravens, he just, the weather was kind of bad, and they had him.
Do you have any other players that or QBs that stood out to you, maybe as a rookie, or not a rookie, just any QBs that really stood out to you?
Well, I thought some of them kind of had a rough year, like Jalen Hurt. I thought last year he had an outstanding year, and this year
Not as well. I
it
totally
went
agree.
south on him this year. I think they might have had something on the team that caused the entire team to have a breakdown. But now, let's go to you. You tell me what you think about the running backs that's going to be in the Super Bowl. Who's the top dog in this?
The running back of the top dog in the Super Bowl. Pretty hard question because Isaiah Pacheco has an unknown superpower. He is very fast, can get through a hole very easy, and Christian McCaffrey is a big guy who can powerhouse through a lot of people. But would you say the question is how many, like, who do you think is going to have?
Yes, in
like-
comparison, who
I think I have to go with McCaffrey because I think he's just going to, like, power through the defense against Kansas City. I mean, and something that would maybe stop him would be Chris Jones and
Well,
Justin Reed in the backfield.
Chris Jones is he's
But-
tough up inside. Tough. They move him around on the line, but I agree with you. I think Chris McCaffrey is the best running back in the league. There's no doubt.
Also, the 49ers have had a rough time on defense the last couple games, and I think Isaiah Pacheco can, like, get through a couple holes against them.
Pacheco has had an excellent year. Very impressed with him. Do you know what school he came out of?
I do not know.
I'm thinking maybe Rutgers. Pretty sure he did.
Wow.
So Isaiah Pacheco, they're going to have to depend on him, but he's tough. But McCaffrey, Chris McCaffrey, he's in a league by himself. I think as a running back.
I have a question for you. Who do you think is going to win MVP of the year? MVP.
Well, I think that was kind of set in stone before they got beat, and I think probably it's going to Lamar Jackson. He's had a great year. And
Okay, that's an interesting pick for me, but
what do you think?
if we're talking MVP, I'm going to say Christian McCaffrey because he's had a excellent running back year this year, especially coming out of California and getting drafted by Carolina and then coming to San Francisco.
I remember watching him when he was number 5 when he was playing for Stanford, you know.
Yeah.
He was an excellent player at that time. And
But do you have any opinions on Rookie of the Year? Because I have a great pick that I think it will be.
I think you already mentioned him.
Yeah, I think it's going to be C.J. Stroud.
There's probably no doubt about that. I think you're exactly right. But as I said before, when you talk about the defense of the 49ers, I think it's all going to come down to what kind of job Chase Young can do. We know that Bosa's got the other end, and they're adequate inside at the defensive tackles. But Young didn't play too well, I didn't think, the last couple of games. And they really expected he was going to take care of that defensive end for him. But if he doesn't pick it up and get his legs moving and start chasing the ball a little bit, they may have a little bit of a rough time with Pacheco.
So I have a question for you.
I've got the answer.
Okay. Why did Kansas City fall down at the end of the year, towards the end of the year of the preseason?
I can answer that. I think it was 4 games or so prior to the end of the season, or 5 games, and they went through a rough time. and then they went out and lost to the Raiders.
Yeah, the Raiders was a big loss.
That was a big major loss for them, and they weren't playing well.
They didn't
They weren't
play.
getting the plays off. They weren't. So I think when they went back and they changed their offense, they have a very.
Speaking of Kansas City, how do you feel about the Kadarius Toney call against Buffalo?
Refresh my memory on that.
It was the offsides penalty on when he pitched it back to Travis Kelce, and Travis Kelce scored it. I believe that happened against Buffalo.
Well, I don't know about that, but I do know that I was going to complete what I observed earlier. I didn't get to finish. I want to finish on why they had a rough time. And the problem they had was that Andy Reid's calling the plays. Then he was calling it up to the box, giving it to his offensive coordinator. He was calling it back down. Down they calling it into Patrick Mahomes, and for Patrick Mahomes has to make the call in the huddle. Well, what ended up was it was taking up all their time. So now he's got to rush, and they were missing the calls. So I think after they went back from that game, they shortened the way they did that. They changed their offense somewhere back to where it made it a little more simple for some of the guys to understand. They were challenged a little too much with it. Excuse me.
I kind of want to go dig into college for a second about Jim Harbaugh for Michigan, and
The Chargers?
Going to the Chargers. Is the main reason that you think the Chargers fired their coach and hired Jim Harbaugh is because of that big loss to Las Vegas?
I don't know. The Chargers struggled this year.
Would you say it was just the Chargers, or was it like part of Justin Herbert like having a rough time?
Well, Justin Herbert, I think, he's more than adequate quarterback. In fact, I think he's a very good quarterback. I'm not sure that the system suited what he was doing. But, Justin Herbert took over as quarterback after Tyrod Taylor was injured and got the shot that went into his lungs, and then Justin Herbert became the starting quarterback. So I don't know, but Jim Harbaugh is a good coach. And, of course, his dad was a coach, and his brother's done a great job. So I think he'll do a good job. But it's going to change how that division ends up.
Do you think like Jim Harbaugh's like play calling at Michigan would help Justin Herbert in Los Angeles?
I don't know who he's bringing in as his offensive coordinator, but that's going to be important. And I'm not, I didn't familiarize myself that much with the Chargers this year. But I'm sure he'll make a change in how he goes. Now, who's the best tight end in the Super Bowl?
I was just gonna ask that.
You gonna ask me? Yeah. I've got an opinion.
I don't think like George Kittle has not been getting that many targets. If I'm correct. and I think Travis Kelce had a big game against Baltimore. So I think it's going to be Travis Kelce that is going to be the better tight end in this game.
Well, he's got more spectators, I guess. He got all the girls watching him now.
Yeah.
So,
T-Swift.
but Kittle is a different type of guy.
I think they do it in two different ways. They're great tight ends in two different ways.
They're both. Kittle, you got what 975 yards or so this year,
Yeah.
and I don't know what Kelce had, maybe 1,000. But I think my thing with that is I think both tight ends are very, very good. So I think they're going to be a big part of the offense. But certainly, I would have to agree that the 49ers probably have the edge in the other three receivers.
Okay. Who has it all for QB?
Well, I'm sorry?
Who do you think is the better QB?
Oh, I don't have any doubts. That's Patrick Mahomes. I think, as I told you earlier, I think you're going to be in between a rock and a hard place.
That's what I was. Yeah.
Who do you think's the best?
I'm going to have to agree with you with Patrick Mahomes because I don't think Brock Purdy has been playing as well as he usually has in the postseason last year, even though they lost to the Eagles in the NFC Championship last year. But still, I think that Patrick Mahomes has it this year.
Well, you have to look at this. You have to look at the time of experience. Purdy hadn't had a great deal of experience. And then he went into this Super Bowl, he went in last year. Was it the Super Bowl or was it? No, it was the game before the Super Bowl when they lost to the Eagles.
Yeah, they lost to the Eagles.
And he got injured in the first quarter.
Yes,
And
Brock Purdy
then
did.
the backup quarterback got hurt. And he went back in, and all he could do was hand the ball off. But this is the second meeting of these two teams for the Super Bowl.
In the last 4 years.
Do you recall what the score was in the last one?
31-20, I believe.
I think probably
I think it was 31-20 KC win.
Kansas City won. But in the middle of the fourth quarter, 49ers were leading by 10 points. So I'm sure they're anxious to get back, try to finish it up and get a victory here. But the X factor comes into the coaching part of it here. And if I'm not mistaken, Andy Reid's been around a few years. He looks like he might be about 82 years old, so that would give him an advantage. Oh, my man.
Kyle Shanahan might be a little younger. I don't know, but maybe.
Andy Reid and Kyle Shanahan, Mike Shanahan's dad, were coached together. I'm not so sure that Andy Reid didn't babysit Kyle Shanahan. And then back during the days. So they've got some family ties. But when it comes to that game during this Super Bowl, there's no brother-in-law going on. You can't have friends on the other side.
So this is like in a year. Who do you think is gonna? What is the next Super Bowl matchup that you think you have after this one?
Well, it's a possibility it could be the same two teams.
That's
They're
true.
both very good. Although I think I was surprised that I wasn't surprised that they beat them, but I was surprised that the Chiefs beat the Ravens so handily. And the Ravens were playing great, but maybe it was the competition toward the end of the season that they were playing, which made a significant difference.
What are your opinions on Jason Kelsey retiring?
Well, I'm sure he's got other interests at this point, so I don't know. I don't think he will retire, though. It kind of gets in your blood.
Are those any certain interests
Well,
in your mind, or those unknown?
no, I think they're known, but I'm not going to mention that. But the girls seem to like Kelsey better now than they used to. He's got the women and the girls into watching the Chiefs. Now I'm going to ask you a question.
Okay.
Do you remember going to a football camp when you were approaching 5 years old and you had to be 5 in order to participate?
San Francisco?
Oh, I believe it was San Francisco.
Okay.
And there, somewhere there's a video of you hitting the blocking dummies.
Oh,
Actually,
yeah.
you were hitting them better than some of the guys they had. I've got a picture, and I should have brought a copy of that picture of you in your stance when we won the school's 800th victory.
Oh,
and
yeah.
you were down in the stand when you in
Mm-hmm.
a stance after that game. You 18 months old. You'd a better stance than most of my linemen. But
I remember that photo.
yeah, you've got some good DNA in you for football, bud.
Speaking of Jason Kelsey, how do you feel about no shirt in Buffalo?
Oh, I like Jason. I thought that was that was a little pushing it a little bit, but he was getting fueled up. I noticed over in his hand. I thought he could have probably got him a good advertisement commercial for the type of beer he was drinking that night, but he had to be getting a little chilly. It was cold out that night. But I guess he had enough antifreeze in him to warm him up.
Yep.
All right. You got any more questions?
I don't have any more.
All right. What's your thoughts on the receivers?
Receivers. Okay.
Who's the best receiver in this game?
Receiver in the game. All right. I'm gonna.
Taking the tight ends out of it.
Tight ends out of it. Okay. I probably have to narrow it down to Rashee Rice for Kansas City.
What number is he?
4.
4?
Yeah, 4.
As much as I like Kansas City, I think Deebo Samuel might be.
Oh, okay. Yes. I had Brandon Ayuk also in there. Brandon Ayuk has had.
Ayuk is good.
Ayuk is good. He's had definitely a better season than last year, even though he was still pretty good last year.
Who's the best receiver that you think you saw play in the NFL this year?
In the NFL. Oh, okay.
Who?
Does that include?
Any team.
But does that include tight ends?
Tight ends, wideouts.
Oh Lord. Do you have your opinion? Because I need to
Oh,
think.
I do have an opinion.
Okay. What is yours?
I can't even tell you his name, but he played for the Rams.
Puka Nacua.
I was afraid to try to pronounce that.
Puka Nacua.
The guy's amazing.
He's good. He is good. He's good.
He is the best I saw this year, I thought.
Best you saw this year.
And he was good. Okay.
What do you think the score prediction and who's gonna win at this Super Bowl game here?
I think it's going to be 35. 35-20. Chiefs with a 35. I
Okay.
hate that we're
Go
on
ahead.
different sides, but I think Andy Reid, as I said, I think Andy Reid is going to be a significant X factor in this, as well as Spagnuolo, his defensive coordinator. Now, when Spagnuolo was with the Giants, he defensed a lot of good teams.
I have my score prediction.
What's
My
your
score prediction is 31-24. SF wins.
Oh, you trying to put Coach Mike in a
Bro.
bad situation here. But I think two good teams are here. It's going to be good. It's going to be great.
I don't really have any more questions. If you.
Well, I tell you, who you going to play for when you're the quarterback? I'm going to come out of retirement and coach you.
For NFL, are we talking?
No, let's start a little lower. Let's start when we're in high school.
High school. Okay. I will be playing at St. Anne's Belfield
Well.
School.
By the time you're seniors, your brother will be your starting linebacker, so Papa will be going, come on, Xander. And we'll get it done, boy. Yeah. We're going to call. By that time, maybe we can get the Hagen boys back.
Yeah. Okay.
Jack Bott and Chris.
Defer.
Christopher.
Yes.
Christopher Dex.
Dirt.
Yep.
Well,
I don't know too much more that we can do today, but Mike and Xander is going to be around for a while, and we're going to bring in some of I think a guy that we could get on, that we could do one with, would be Dwight Stevenson, NFL Hall of Famer from the Hampton Cravers via Alabama and the Miami Dolphins. Oh, I do have a statistic I'd like to share with you. Mm-hmm. As good as the University of Alabama and all the pros that they've sent,
yeah.
do you realize that they're one of the very few, and I'm talking about there were schools that we can't even look at the name and find now, they're probably disbanded, but they're the only ones that have never had a player that scored a touchdown in the Super Bowl.
Dang. Wow.
Now, they had some quarterbacks that threw.
Are there any Alabama SF players or Kansas City players that have a big potential of scoring a touchdown in this game?
It's not going to be, there's no Alabama players on either team.
Wow.
The one that came the closest was last year was Smith, the wide receiver
Devontae Smith. Yeah.
for Philadelphia.
Yeah.
And then he got tackled. They thought he was getting in the end zone, but he got tackled on
He scored one in the NFC Championship, but he didn't quite score one.
in the Super Bowl. He came up about a yard short. So we could be looking for that. But if the one thing we're going to take note in is, though, that the Chiefs are going to get to play in and snap the ball in a time frame that's going to give Mahomes time to take his time and not rush. That's when they changed the whole avenue of things and reduced the play calling.
Do you have any other people that you think would come onto the show?
Oh, absolutely. We've got one watching us tonight, a guy that was a national high school football player of the year when he played for me, by the name of Robert Banks. And Robert Banks played at Notre Dame,
Notre Dame.
played for Houston Oilers, Cleveland Browns. He lives in Houston at this time, and he was going to watch us live tonight, I think. He's in high school. He was a 6'5", 245-pound linebacker, and one of the finest people you ever met. We get him. We can get. Hopefully, we get Ronald Curry also.
Mike Tomlin, maybe.
Well, I'm sure he's a Peninsula District guy. And do you know who the new coach of the Patriots is?
I do not remember quite.
I'm gonna have to get you to look that one up.
Okay.
He's from Hampton, Virginia. Played at Kecoughtan High School.
Well, thank you for watching The Last Night with Mike and Xander. And that will be it.
Well, I tell you what, my main man over here on my right, and when we come back, we're going to really fire it up the next time. So until that time, have a great one. And if you need any coaching tips, contact Mike and Xander.
Goodbye from Charlottesville, Virginia.
Okay.
Good job, boys.